without any further ado, Janelle is working as senior data engineer at Amazon, and she herself is a FAANG interview coach and mentor. She's also an interview panelist at Amazon, and she drives large-scale analytics pipelines that's powered global Amazon operations. She also designs optimized data lakes and modeling frameworks at a petabyte scale, and she brings real world insights from inside Amazon's data ecosystem for you guys to firsthand understand and learn how Amazon interviews work. All right. Thank you so much, Jinal, for joining us today. I would like you to go ahead and take it over from here.
Thank you, Akshay. Thank you for the warm introduction. Thank you, everyone, for joining today evening. Yeah, to start with, how did I start my journey? I want to share my journey before I even talk about how do you prepare for the interview. I was never into this world like data engineering world. It was everything new. I came to States to do my master's. In master's course, I got couple of courses that talks about ETL. That's all I knew as a data engineer. But I wanted to be in FANG, and I applied for Amazon through referral. And when I got interview call, I got freaked out because I don't know what to prepare, what to think about, how to prepare. I had only 2 weeks, and I thought I might not be able to crack the interview. Uh, but yeah, I studied 2 weeks, so I made a lot of mistakes that I want to share today with all of you. And when I look back 6 years, I started at Amazon in 2019, and things that actually helped me was those 2 weeks. How did I prepare? I want to share do's and don'ts when you start as a beginner or experienced in the data engineering field. So when I started into Amazon, initial 6 months was horrible. I I cannot actually. I lost my confidence. I felt that I did not meet the standards. I cannot speak up in the meetings. People are speaking too much. I'm not that techy. How do I cope up? It took me almost 1.5 year to make myself feel comfortable. And after 1.5 year, I realized that I started enjoying data engineering profile. So I thought I want to continue ahead as a data engineer. But when I actually spent that 1.5 year at Amazon, it was a roller coaster for me. I'm like, I'm not prepared. Maybe I'm lucky enough to get into Amazon, but I don't think so. Um, I can accomplish good things. So in this 6 years, the journey started from zero till where I am right now. I'm an active interview panel member. I have done 30 plus hirings. I'm a coach, mentor. I actually guide people what things to focus on. When it comes to interview, it's not only about technical things, but more about how do you change your modulation in voice, how what emphasis do you put in your interviews, what type of keywords do we use. We will cover a lot more things, but yeah, that's about my journey as a data engineer. uh, today actually I completed 6 years, and I started seventh year. I worked in USA, Canada, India. I worked across 5 different teams. Currently, I'm working at Amazon Profitability Management, where I work directly with the AI agents. I create AI data infrastructure pipeline. Yeah, to get started, let me start with how do we kickstart your FANG interview preparation? And yes, thank you, Akshay. So let's say you got interview call, and now you don't know what to prepare, where to prepare, because there is so much of things. You have infrastructure, you have pipelines, you have use case, you have resumes, you have uh, stories to build around. uh, and people get confused, like where should I start my interview prep, or how should I actually even start my interview prep? I would say that sit down whenever you get interview call. Just create your roadmap into this 5 buckets. First is fundamental technical skills. What does that mean? Even if you're experienced, make sure that you're covering your fundamentals, brush up those technical skill sets, because you never know, interviewer can ask you any basic questions. They are not too much into like what the problems you are going to solve, but they also want to make sure that you're still in touch with those fundamentals. Fundamentals is something which is very very important. Even as an senior level, when I applied for any other company, I have given interviews at Meta, Google, Netflix, Uber, Zoom, LinkedIn. I have given interviews in multiple companies. Trust me, they do ask fundamental questions. Even if it's a senior profile, they want to understand whether your core skill sets are still the same or not. Second is data engineering basic concepts. When it comes to basic concepts, I will share my own experience. When I did interview call with Amazon, there were 6 rounds. First was telephonic, and remaining 5 rounds were technical. Out of those 5 rounds, almost 4 rounds were based on my basic concepts. What they're looking is whether a person is first aware of a basic concepts or not, and can they apply those concepts in the real time problem. How can they solve problems using basic concepts is what they are all looking for. So question that was asked to me was, it's a very stupid question that I felt. What is the difference between primary key and a foreign key? Give me with an example. Explain me with an example. And I'm like, am I looking so dumb to you? You are asking me this question. Obviously, I did not speak up that to the interviewer. But then, when I'm sitting at the interviewer's side and not the interviewee, now I understand that it's not a stupid question. We want to understand whether the foundations are clear or not for a student. And so that's very important. Whenever you explain anything, it's always back up your answers with an example. Don't throw book examples like employee, student, customer ID table. Put something which is not very common. Third thing is about data infrastructure and system design questions. We will cover more in detail what exactly I meant by this. It's a huge umbrella, but when it comes to interview preparation, this should be the flow, like covering fundamentals, then basic concepts, then jumping it into data infrastructure, because only when you cover your basic concepts, you will be able to do data infrastructure, like what I want to integrate, what services I want to integrate. Talking about AWS services, when it comes to compute, do I want to use Redshift? Do I want to use Lambda versus Glue for my transformations? So those kind of decisions are actually you can take only when you understand about it. Fourth, I would like to know, before I move to the fourth point, mock interviews with professionals. Um, Let me know if anybody has taken mock interviews with professionals. You can put thumbs up in the chat box so that I understand the audience. Nice. That's good. People are well ahead of the time. In 2019, thank you. Thank you for all the responses. This is very helpful to understand. Mock interview with professional. This is very, very, very important because this was one of my biggest issue, or I would say I was not aware about it. Like, we have some type of services or professionals who are willing to help us based on their experience, based on their career journey that they're doing it. I never did mock interviews, so I made a lot of mistakes, and that's why most of the interviews at FAANG company was also not cracked. This was my honest feedback. When I go back 6 years back, I felt like I wish I had taken some mock interviews with professional. Now I'll tell you why it is important. Mock interviews will not only tell you whether you're technically strong, but it will actually guide you where you're exactly wrong, where you're exactly doing good, where do you stand right now in the market, how much you have to prepare. They mentally prepare you, like, okay, you can be prepared in a month or 2 months or 3 months. But taking mock interview with professional is highly, highly recommended. They will cover both technical and behavioral. When it comes to behavioral, for example, again, let's say if I ask any question, what are your top strengths? Some of the candidates will say detail oriented, teamwork, or maybe good with documentation. But as an interviewer, I don't want to listen those two words. I want to actually understand your strength, like how productive you can be, or in general, what are your strengths? Like, if you're saying documentation, how do you elaborate that? How can you back up with those examples? How can you explain much better with the data points that you have done previously? So, even if it is behavioral, we want to sell yourself those skill sets. Some of the questions can be, what are your top 3 weaknesses? and people stuck after one weaknesses because they cannot think about it. So professionals will actually help you with all the basic questions. If there is any surprise questions, how do you react? If there is any question where, for example, if they say that, hey, have you worked with Kafka, and you have actually not worked, but how do you answer back, making sure that it's creating positive impact on the interviewer. We don't want to fake it, but we also don't want to keep silent and have that awkward moment in the interview. Last but not the least, know your resume. Oh my gosh, yes. So this is something people write resume through the software chat gpt, which is okay, but then they go to the ATS tracker and see how much is the score. They try to match that score. If it is matching 90%, 95% keywords with the job description, still it's good. When they submit, their resumes are selected, they're getting interview call. Now, as an interviewer, I can drag the entire interview just on one bullet point. For example, if the bullet point is written, I can do load balancing on the Redshift cluster, impacting or increasing scalability by 90%. I'm like, do you even measure the scalability? I can drive entire interview just on that one bullet point. Please make sure, be creative with your resume. Whatever you put in that bullet point, you should be aware what you're talking. Each bullet point should say what you did, how you did, what was the impact. So you have to study your resume, because right now what you guys are doing is using ChatGPT, creating resume, amazing. But then understand each and every bullet point that you're creating. What is the storyline behind that? So please study your resume very well. That is also one question in the interview. Like, just walk me through your resume. During the interview, your interview can go either based on your resume, it can go based on your stories, or it can based on the drafted questions that they already have at the interview site. So you don't know from where the questions are going to come, so you want to be prepared from all the sides. Yeah, we can move on to the next slide. Now the question can be, hey, I'm a beginner or I'm an experienced, I have interview in next 1 month or 2 weeks. What are the areas I should focus on? What is my priority? As a beginner, as an interviewer, if I'm hiring somebody at a beginner level, what are the things that I will actually look for? I will go through the resume. I will see what are the work experiences he or she is having. Does this align with my work? Number one. And does the person has a diverse experience or not? I'll just try to understand. I'm not judging anybody here. So based on that, if there is lack in the resume, I will cover through that my fundamental questions. For example, code optimization. We write SQL code, Python code. So in your resume, it is written that you have done SQL coding. But now I cannot see anywhere whether you have done any code optimization. So that is something as an interviewer, I will try to cover through the fundamental skill sets. Resume is the first priority. Know your resume first. Second is your fundamental skills. Third is your basic concepts. These are three mandatory things to crack interview in any FAANG company as a data engineer. Now let's say for an experienced person, what matters? What matters is their use case. Hey, tell me a scenario where there was a sudden data spike. What are the things you will check? So, what an interviewer wants to know is your thought process. How are you going to navigate to that problem? What things are you going to check? Are you going to talk to your stakeholders? What do you going to check the server configurations, data itself? There's a bug in the system. So basically, out of the box thinking or what you actually experienced is what an interviewer wants to see. Second is your project. Try to recollect the projects that you have worked. And when you recollect, ask yourself these questions. What was this project? Uh, what did I do? What tech stack did I use? What was the outcome of the project? Not necessary every projects are completed successfully. This is where one of the tricky question comes in. Hey, tell me a project where you failed. Given a time, how do you rectify it? So definitely the interviewer is asking is, tell me a project where you failed. I'm not asking for any successful projects, failed projects. So keep a list of projects, one or two, which is also like a failure and not successful, but always back up your answer with some positive learnings or documentations or working with your leaders. How did you correct yourself? Next is infrastructure design. One standard question in FAANG design, they will ask very vague questions like, hey, design data infrastructure for e-commerce platform, or design infrastructure for AI agents, or a bot system. How do you design? They're not telling you anything else. Now, how do you actually design the things? This is what is expected from an experienced person. When I say experienced person, anybody who is having more than 2 to 3 years of experience. I would still give importance to the basic concepts because you never know, an interviewer might ask you for a basic concepts too. So please make sure to give the priority based on your beginner or experience level. Now, uh, as an interviewer, what are the expectations? Now, first is in the fundamental, as I said, all you have to do for data engineering is coding, two types of coding, Python and advanced SQL. I'm emphasizing on advanced SQL because they're not looking for anymore for join operations or group by. They are looking for Windows functions. They are looking for analytical functions that you can use. Third thing is they are looking for code optimization. You have written 1,000 lines of code. How do you optimize? Definitely, now in all the companies, they are having their internal AI tools that can help you write the entire query. What does that mean? It will help you to kickstart your programming. You don't have to spend entire day to code, but can you rely on that? No. In that, your intelligence will come into picture. Does this code even look efficient? How can I optimize it? If my pipeline is running for 2 hours, how can I optimize my code or my logic in such a way? When it comes to logic, it's nothing but a coding. How can I optimize that? It is important to know one of the cloud services, whether it is AWS, Azure, or GCP. As an interviewer, I see students writing all three, AWS, Azure, GCP. And when if I ask questions for GCP, then they will not be able to answer. Or if I try to tell them, hey, can you compare me S3 in AWS versus in Azure or GCP? This is very basic question, but still people are not able to answer that. So please make sure to write only those services in your resume which you actually know or which you can actually study and tell in the interview. But one of the cloud service is mandatory, and that will be considered as a fundamental technical skills. AI concepts. Yes. What do I mean by AI concepts? Do you even understand LLM, RAGs? When we should use LLM versus RAG? What is the data infrastructure pipeline for the AI agent? What happens when my AI hallucinate? I'm not telling you to prepare in depth about everything, but um, just understand the concept, like how it works, what is RAG. When it comes to fundamental questions, just ask basic questions. What is this? When it is used? How it is used? That's all. If you cover these three questions, you're done with the concepts. Regax. Rags. I meant this one. Regs. Thank you. Second is data engineering basic concepts. Now, the first thing is theory of SQL. One of the meta question that I was asked in the first phone call interview, if I use union versus union all, which one is better and why it is better? If I do true and false, what is the output? First interview questions, back in those days, everything was from the Glassdoor. So I was prepared. But then I realized it's not going to go well after the first interview. Even at Amazon and Google, they do ask basic questions of uh, SQL. What do you mean by this property? What do you mean by normalization? People use in their stories, hey, I got this data and I normalized it or I denormalized it. And when I ask them, What is the difference? When you should be using normalization versus denormalization? What are the type of normalization? What is BCNF? Why not 1NF? And they answer it, but I understand that they struggle to answer that. So it is important to understand the theory of SQL. Although it might sound like it's not very important, do not eliminate that from your study plan. Second thing is ETL versus ELT processing. Third is data modeling. It- One interview round can only go for data modeling. Hey, can you design a data models for this scenario? What are the keys you will consider? What are the tables you will consider? What are the naming conventions do you think we should keep? Do you think we can join table A versus table B? What type of modelings do we have? If there are three types of modeling, uh, which one, like, do we should go for logical, physical? What is the order of modeling? Have you experienced any time doing data modeling at your end? What are the there it goes on and on and on. So basic concepts of data modeling is important. Concepts, entity relationship concepts. What is one to one mapping? What is bridge table? What is, um, when should we use top approach or bottom down approach? All the concepts is important. When I was switching team in Amazon from one team to another, we also have to go through the interview rounds. And one of the interview question was, hey, can you design an system a railway uh, for a railway system? And I'm like, this looks like a bookish question. But they don't care about it. What they care is how many things are you covering in this, how much you can think, what are the edge cases that you can think about. Next is data quality. I have not seen anybody speaking about data quality when they are fresher. So as a beginner, please make sure that you also study about data quality, what it is, why it is. I do remember I asked one candidate, what is the difference between data quality and data validation? That candidate could not answer that with an example. So you might sound that, data quality, it's very simple to answer. What's there to learn, right? But when you learn, ask, when should I be doing data quality checks? What are the default templates that I can use? Is there any automation for which I can create data qualities? In pipeline, what are the mandatory data qualities that I should be implementing? So also read about data quality. Alert and monitoring mechanism. This is also one thing I haven't heard from the beginners. When I ask them alert mechanism and monitoring, they talk about Tableau dashboard, which is good. But what I'm looking for is, how do you going to create logs? Are you going to push your pipeline through CI/CD? If yes, how the alerts will be generated? What services will you integrate? And in monitoring, if the number reaches more than X value, how do I get to know in the midnight, hey, this is not something I was looking for, my pipeline is broken, or something has happened? So also study about alert mechanism. How can you implement that? What are the ways to implement that? SDC tables, these are common questions. What are the type of SDC tables? Where I should be using those tables? Third is data infrastructure. In data infrastructure, what matters is, what interviewer is looking is, are you talking about scalability? If I have to integrate 100 pipelines, can I do with your infrastructure? How can I process real time data? If it is a different structure, how can you handle it? I want to listen those in your stories as an interviewer. These are the questions that interviewer is looking for. SCD tables, slowly changing dimension tables. Yes. uh, Third is about data storage optimization. In even there are different ways in the storage: raw layer, intermediate layer, final layer. How do you want to optimize that? Because if the data grows, how we want to retain the previous historical data? Is there any retention policy? Is there any versioning done? Fourth one is infrastructure efficiency. When I say efficiency, I want to see how fast it is processing. If it is not, how can I make it better? Do I know that? Handling different structured data. Data can come in any form: structured, unstructured, images. You never know. And how do you actually handle those type of scenarios. They want to understand. Trade-off decisions is nothing but, again, as I said, lambda versus glue. Which one do I want to pick and why? In the orchestration, we have different internal tools versus airflow. Which one do I want to use and why? I need to justify that. So, is my interviewee able to cover all these things when they're talking about data infrastructure? Fourth is mock interview with professionals. I'm sure you must have heard about STAR format: situation, task, action, result. Please practice your answers keeping this STAR format in mind. That way, it will help you to know when to start your answer, how to start your answer and how to end your answer. Sometimes, what happens, people keep on talking and they are not able to conclude the answer. They don't know how to end the answer. So, this tool will always help you, and that way, it will keep you focused like, okay, I have to talk about my situation, my task, my actions, and my results. So please practice in star format. We can go next. Most important thing, red flags that interviewer look at. This is the first thing that interviewer look at. Communication, your body language. Somebody is very nervous, very stiff. Sometimes I have also observed people read from another screen and they answer me back. And we are given training that we can identify those candidates through their body language. When they are not able to communicate well, they are not able to talk, they know what they are talking, but as an interviewer, they are not able to narrate it well. So maybe he or she is feeling that, oh, I'm explaining technical things, but it's not in the right structure. Sometimes it's important to ask clarifying questions. For example, in SQL questions, if a question is very complex, at least in your one interview round, ask one clarifying question. Because in the back end, what happens after your interview, all the interview panel member take their notes, sit in a meeting room, and discuss about the candidate, whether this candidate do good or not. If not, what are the red flags? If yes, what are the green flags? And based on that, they take a decision whether if I want to hire this candidate or not. So when they share their notes, at least nobody should have a discussion, oh, this candidate never asked clarification question. At least one of the interview panel members should be able to say, hey, he or she did ask me those clarification questions. So try to ask one or two clarification questions. Third, sharing same stories, 2 to 3 stories across the interview process. It's a big red flag because, again, when the interviewer panels sit together and discuss, hey, in my interview round, this person told me this story and this was the outcome, other interview panel member will say, oh, even for me, this was the same thing. I know it's very tough that you have to stick to only 2 to 3 stories if you're again a beginner or a fresher, but try to have as many stories as you can. If I have to put a number, at least 17 stories. Uh, two for each. One you can use it wherever you want to use. I will explain you through our demo session also. But now it might sound, oh my gosh, it's so complicated. How can I come up with this 17 stories? Don't worry, you can always make up a story. There's always a story. It's just that you have to go to your resume, think through, or go back to your projects, or go back to any volunteer work that you have done, or any task that you have performed anywhere in your college, academics, or in your work experience. Try to think and write it down or document somewhere and then create stories. So don't share 2 to 3 stories, have more stories. Next is problem solving approach. We don't want anybody to jump directly to the solution. They want, as an interviewer, they want to listen. What was the problem? How did you solve that problem? What were the challenges when you solved that problem? And what was the end result of it? Again, the star format. But we don't want people to jump, oh, this was the problem and this was the solution. No, we want to understand step by step what you did, how much time it took for you. To one candidate, I did ask, hey, you said you did coding, blah, blah, blah. Tell me the number of lines of code that you have written. And he told me it was 2 to 3 pages. Now, do you think coding is in pages or in lines? It should be in lines, not in pages. So I clearly understood that the person doesn't know and person is just faking his answer. Second, missing metrics or outcome. Try to quantify wherever you can. I worked with 3 plus teams or stakeholders. End result was uh, I actually did I removed manual process of 8 hours on a daily basis. Quantify the numbers. I created 10 plus data pipelines in my 6 years of journey. Just throwing a number, but make it sound as a reasonable number. Now here is a trick. I have seen people saying that, hey, I have done blah 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 things and I have made system reliable by 99.99 percentage or 33.33 percentage, favorite numbers. And then I'm like, okay, how do you measure reliability? I have never seen that in my experience. You can measure manual work, you can measure performance, like number of queries running now versus later after the improvement. How do you measure reliability? I don't know, and they cannot answer me that question because they are doing copy paste from somewhere, and this is not the real experience that they have. So also when you say the number, make sure that you have the right numbers to say, right story behind to say that. Missing edge cases. I want to listen what are the edge cases that they are covering when they're talking about the answers. Did you propose a solution or implement it? Did you take a lead? Did you take an ownership? I want to listen those buzzwords or keywords. How did you solve that problem? End to end, partially, one module. So always give that clarity in your answer. Third is project understanding. Unable to give specific information. They say, hey, I did documentation. What kind of documentation? Will that help mentors? Will help seniors? Be specific. If you are creating documentation, how it's going to save your resource time? Be specific as much as you can. When you say, I worked with 3 different stakeholders, instead of you can say, I work with research and developers or downstream users or BI intelligence engineers in my team. Those were the 2 downstream users for me, or these were the upstream users for me. Be specific. B, we already covered. Try to mention overall impact. We already spoke about the fake numbers. Don't fake it. Or if you fake it, then make it. Fourth is data modeling and architecture. We want to understand, are you applying your theoretical knowledge in your practical projects? Are you checking all the edge cases when you do those modelings? Keys, tables, columns, numeric value. Is this aggregated value? Are you guys adding audit columns? What if my data, if my data is lost, I want to recover, but I don't know from when I want to recover. So those audit columns will help. Approach to solve the problem. This is something I have seen, and this is very important from now onwards. Security. How do you implement secured measures, or how do you take secured measures in your pipeline? Last, not mentioning about automation. For example, hey, if you want to do something differently, what will you think? This is mainly for the experienced person. They want to listen more about the automations that they have done through CI/CDs. Next. So now this is a lot of information to process. As a playbook, I won't be doing too much detailing, but first thing is get your resume done by professional. That was one of the mistakes which I did. I never went to a mentor or any professionals to get feedback on my resume. Second, LinkedIn portfolio setup. Portfolio is important. LinkedIn is also important, but people say that, hey, sometimes recruiters doesn't look at the LinkedIn. I'm like, no, they do look at your LinkedIn. So LinkedIn portfolio both is important. Third, master deep fundamentals and designings that I just spoke. Fourth, I want to emphasize more on this. From now onwards, again, I'm emphasizing more that now onwards. When I started data engineering work in 2019, it was not a very popular profile. Just because of AI, data engineering is getting popularity since 1.5 year, and everybody wants to be a data engineer. So now, as a data engineer, you are half engineer and half AI person. As an AI, go through the basic concepts, at least have one or two projects in your resume or in the interview to talk about AI thing. How did you create pipeline for the AI agents or what you did? They basically want to listen whether you have a knowledge on AI or not. If I recruit you, will that help my team? Now, important thing here is nobody is doing excellent in the real world. Everybody is still on the learning phase. So even if you make mistake here and there, it's fine, but at least showcase that you got some experience on the AI project, whether it's a volunteer project or whether it's a real time project. But please talk about AI projects in your interview. Fifth, this is again the mistake. I never went with professionals for the mock interview. Highly suggested to have mock interviews with professionals. They will teach you not only um, critics feedbacks or positive feedbacks, but they'll give you more like a confidence. Okay, now you're ready and you can go ahead for the interview. Yeah, thank you, Akshay. So here is the blueprint. Can you please go back? Yeah. Interview rounds. What are the interview rounds? SQL and data manipulation. They are looking for query efficiency, debugging the logic, handling the edge cases, logical flow. One important thing, speak up. When you write any coding in your SQL or Python, uh, don't just speak up. Okay, this, if like for example, if you speak to yourself, it's fine, but speak louder. These are the two tables I will be joining this. These are the group by, if I do group by, so that way interviewer knows that you're not copying from chat gpt, number one. Number two, you're actually coding it by yourself and there's a thought process going in your mind. This is highly encouraged. Third thing, they are not looking for the output, they're just looking for the pseudocode or the logic. Sometimes, if you're not able to write the perfect syntax, speak up openly and say to them that it's okay. I'm not able to write the clear syntax, but is it okay if I can write a pseudocode? And they'll say yes. Most of the times, it happens that way. Data modeling and architecture, we already covered schema designing, scalability. How do we translate business into structured? This is also one important thing these days they are looking for. We don't want people who can just do tech, but also think up from business perspective. How can they grow business? Or how can they do better in the business? What metrics can they derive to improve the business? Again, what are the trade-offs in the success factor? Third is system design. What are the designing strategies? What are the different proposals that you can give? What are the ingestion strategies? What are the data sources? How much data you're going to store? What are the retention policies? End to end architecture thinking is what matters the most. The most important thing that every leader wants, I want the best platform, but at the cheapest cost. I don't want to spend too much money. So you need to keep that also in mind about the cost factor. Regarding the behavioral questions, talk more about the keywords: data gathering, data validation, ownership, deep dive. You're doing critical thinking. Throw those buzzwords in your answers. That way, they will know what you're doing it. I know this does not make sense, but this is how the interviewer trainers training is given. Bar raiser. Bar raiser is nothing but the interviewer panel that I discuss. Let's say out of six people, three people are saying inclined for that candidate, three people are saying not inclined for that candidate. So a bar raiser will come into a picture and then the bar raiser will take a decision. But you don't know who is a bar raiser. So for you, everybody is a bar raiser and give your best shot. Now, this is something we want to understand. If you want to be ready, if you want to feel confident, Work with the professionals, and identify what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. If there are any weaknesses, how much time do you want to spend? I would suggest you to master coding skills. Now, lead code is the right thing to do. Easy, medium, first priority. Even if you're not able to do high level of SQL or Python coding, it's fine. But at least make sure you're covering all easy and medium. Once you're covered that, you can also think, how can I optimize this? Third thing is practice under interview, like constraints through mock sessions. Take as many mock sessions as you can, but I think you will get good feedbacks in the initial session, so you'll get enough practice time and you'll be ready with the final interview. Get structure feedback, meaning you don't have to, first of all, do not take it to your heart, take it very positively, every feedback that you get, and try to work on that feedback. For every feedback, try to see what could be your roadmap, how can you make it better, and how can you not repeat that if there is something pointed out. Last, develop storytelling. This is the toughest part for any candidate. So, I understand whenever you practice, keep in mind star format. Every bullet point of your resume or storytelling should be divided into this four parts: situation, task, action, result. Ask yourself what I did, how I did, when I did, what were the failures, what were the challenges, what was the success metrics, who got impacted, upstream, downstream, what were your learning lessons. These are the basic questions that you will ask for any story, and you will be very confident with your stories if you can answer those questions. I just wanted to know from the audience, did you guys already experience any FANG interviews? You can say thumbs up or yes in the chat box. Nice. Okay. Good. Nice. Good. Only reason to ask, so that way we can cover what are the expectations from the FANG interviewers. We can also check maybe what went wrong, or if you want to ask any questions, uh, I can also take that questions after we cover this two questions here. Thank you for sharing the info. With the live demo, first question, it could be design a near real-time data pipeline to track global user activity. Data arrives from multiple regions with different latency and schema versions. What would you think you can take an action on? Now, this question is very lengthy. You can either ask interviewer to copy paste this question in the chat box so that you can read and make sure that you're covering all the answers to what was asked. And then they want to know that when it comes to designing, you want to take a backward approach, meaning, for example, what type of user, when it comes user activity, what tables are we going to derive, or what tables are we going to create in that tables. If it's a real time data, how frequently I want to update the data. If there is any break in the data, what type of alert mechanisms will I keep, or what types of checkpoints will I keep. It says data arrives from multiple regions with different latency. This is something very important that they want to listen. What, how can you handle this situation? Are you going to put some layers to it, some logic that will standardize the data? Or let's say every day the data should come at 8 a.m., but now the data is not coming at 8 a.m. So you want to collect the data at a certain time. Once all the data arrives, is when you want to actually make the transformation. But again, it's a real time data. So how will you handle? It's what the tricky question is. Next question, how would you design for scalability, consistency, and cost? It's a very vague question. Now, how do you want to address this? Here, nothing is asked like a scenario. You can always speak up saying that thinking about this system, I'm going to design data infrastructure, keeping scalability in mind. How do I scale? I want to create a generalized pipeline, parametric pipeline, meaning if this parameter comes, then I want this pipeline to run. If this parameter or input comes, I want this pipeline to run. I want an isolation among the pipelines, but the first filter should be based on the parameters, something of those lines. So you need to be very specific in your answers about what kind of systems are you talking about, how you're thinking to design that system. When you design, are you covering data source, data, this is very basic things, data source, data transformation, data loading, security mechanism, uh, alert mechanism, how are you going to do data retention, storage, compute, cost, keeping all that in mind. They want to listen your answer again in star format. So you need to practice this type of questions. Please let me know if you have any questions on this two specific questions, if anybody wants to know anything. Okay, I'll take it as no for now. But let me know if you have any questions in the chat box. So there's a question, one more dimension to it, compliance and privacy. I'm sorry, can you please elaborate what is the question? Okay, thank you. Very important. Good question. So this is something very important when you handle EU data. How do you design? Correct. How do you design the database separately? What type of encryptions do you keep in mind? How can you encrypt and decrypt the data when required? What are the security certifications you need for your platform? How do you do that security certifications? Have you gone through those security processes? There is which is called as application security review uh, in the Amazon, where we have to go through certain steps to actually certify a platform, making sure that it can handle red data. Red data is nothing but the customer or the uh, important data which we don't want to make available for everyone. It's a secure data. So we want to be compliant. So there are different ways to do it. Have you ever done it? If yes, then please explain with the examples. I hope that answers the question, Uday. Next question. Uh, they are looking to ingest real time data into warehouse, right? Yes. Yes, Pravin, that's correct. Thank you. Any other questions? Last 1 minute if anybody wants to ask. Okay. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot, Jinil, for this power-packed session. And thanks a lot, everyone, for joining us today on a Friday evening for this valuable masterclass. I see that a couple of my participants have raised their hands. Guys, if you have any questions, please go ahead and shoot them in the chat.
Sorry,
Um,
I missed one of the questions
yeah,
at the top. The organization I worked for over the last 20 years was neither project management, mature nor analytical. How can you help me navigate this? I feel like I need to re explore everything from the ground up. It's okay to re explore because things have been changed in this 6 years. I'm sure in 20 years everything has changed. So it's okay to do things from the ground up. That way you will be doing right things. Although it takes time, it's fine. But we want to do it things in a right way. So once we have the roadmap, you can actually go through that roadmap and practice based on the feedbacks given on your resume or the tech stack. but you have to be mentally prepared that it's going to take some time. So it's okay. I hope that answers your question. Few more questions. Ajab says starting. Okay, I think this question is for you, Akshay.
All right. Just a sec. Let me take this up. Egypt says starting from 7,500, what's the minimum and maximum? All right, guys, for this, you'll get a detailed call from our experts. We'll keep you posted and share more details around that right after this call. Okay. I see there's one more question
Yes,
oriented to, yeah, for you,
I
Gina.
can. Thank you. So question is, I want to transition from a BIE to a data engineer. Is it possible without data engineering work experience? Yes, absolutely it is possible. You can show as if you're working closely with the data engineers. That's where you got most of the interest to work in that profile. And that is one of the reason why you want to transition as a data engineer. BIE and data engineer are very close profile. So the transition is very smooth. The only thing is you have to be well prepared with what we discussed today. If you prepare that, I think it's easy to transition from BIE to data engineer rather than somebody coming from chemistry and transiting to data engineering. So, to answer your question, yes, it's easy and possible.
Excellent. I think that's all for today, Genial. Thanks a lot for this really, really helpful session today for all the audience. And thanks a lot, everybody, for being so interactive. I hope you have a very good evening. Thank you so much for joining in today. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.